Elijah Jackson was a bright and passionate 16-year-old who had dreamed of becoming a pilot since he was a young boy. His talent and dedication earned him a coveted spot in Horizon Airlines' career exploration program, a unique opportunity that only a select few high school students could achieve. That morning, Elijah had been invited to the pilot's lounge where he was told he could wait for his guide, Tanya Reynolds from the airline's HR department, while she handled an urgent matter. He proudly wore the special ID badge she had issued, feeling honored to be among the professionals he admired. Elijah settled into a chair, quietly watching a documentary on aviation history on the lounge's TV screen. He couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and anticipation for the day ahead. Just being in this space, surrounded by reminders of his aspirations, filled him with excitement and the determination to prove himself worthy of the opportunity he had worked so hard to attain. Suddenly, the lounge door opened and Captain Rebecca Whitman, a seasoned pilot at Horizon Airlines, walked in. Spotting Elijah, her demeanor shifted immediately. With a hardened expression, she approached him, questioning why he was there. Elijah politely introduced himself and explained that he was part of the career exploration program, holding up his ID badge to confirm his authorization to be in the lounge. However, Captain Whitman dismissed his explanation with a look of suspicion. She accused him of not belonging in a space reserved for pilots and insisted that he leave at once. When Elijah tried to explain again, referencing the HR representative who had authorized his presence, Captain Whitman abruptly grabbed his ID badge, claiming it was fake. Her sharp tone and accusatory words left him stunned and deeply confused. He had done everything by the book, following the instructions given to him by the program's coordinators. Yet here he was, facing a barrage of unfounded accusations. As the tension escalated, Captain Whitman called airport security, demanding that Elijah be removed for trespassing. Her actions turned what should have been a proud and promising moment into a nightmare. Elijah's heart sank as he realized that his hard-earned opportunity was slipping away before it could even begin. Despite holding back tears, he remained frozen in place, trying to understand how things had gone so wrong. It was supposed to be the start of a memorable journey into the world of aviation, but now it seemed like everything he had worked for was unraveling because of one person's unwarranted suspicion and prejudice. As Captain Rebecca Whitman confronted Elijah in the pilot's lounge, it quickly became evident that her accusations weren't based on any concrete evidence. Instead, they were fueled by underlying prejudices that made her doubt his presence solely because of his appearance. Elijah, a young black student who had earned his spot in Horizon Airlines' competitive career exploration program, stood quietly as she accused him of using a fake ID to gain unauthorized access. Her tone was sharp and dismissive, leaving no room for Elijah to explain himself. The discomfort in the room grew as Captain Whitman made assumptions about his intentions, questioning how he had entered such a restricted space. She disregarded his explanation and ignored the credentials he displayed. Even when Elijah respectfully repeated that Tanya Reynolds, a trusted HR representative, had personally given him the badge, Whitman refused to believe him. Her disbelief seemed rooted not in Elijah's actions, but in her own preconceived notions. In her eyes, someone like him simply didn't belong there. The accusations quickly escalated. Rather than taking a moment to verify his story, Captain Whitman went so far as to call airport security. The decision to do so sent a clear message to those nearby. She saw Elijah not as a promising young participant in a professional program, but as a potential threat. Her words and actions implied that he was out of place, that his presence was suspicious by default, and that he couldn't possibly have a legitimate reason to be in the pilot's lounge. What should have been a defining day for Elijah, a moment to observe and learn in a setting he had dreamed of for years, turned into an experience fraught with humiliation and fear. The hard work and determination that brought him there seemed to vanish in an instant, overshadowed by assumptions about his character based solely on his appearance. Whitman's behavior left Elijah isolated and powerless, surrounded by others who either silently agreed with her or were too hesitant to challenge her authority. As her baseless accusations continued, the true weight of prejudice came into focus. It wasn't just the words she used. It was the message they carried that Elijah, despite his credentials, his accomplishments, and his potential, would always have to prove his worth twice over simply because of who he was. Her unwillingness to listen or reconsider her stance made it clear that the root of the problem lay not with Elijah, but with the bias she brought into that room. Elijah's initial sense of pride and anticipation quickly crumbled under the weight of the assumptions made against him. He had entered the pilot's lounge full of excitement, carrying the badge issued by Tanya Reynolds from HR, which he believed represented his rightful place in this esteemed environment. Sitting quietly and watching a documentary on aviation history, he was unaware that his mere presence would provoke such an unwarranted reaction. The badge pinned to his chest, the result of his hard-earned acceptance into Horizon Airlines' career exploration program, should have been a symbol of accomplishment. Instead, it became the focal point of Captain Whitman's unfounded suspicion. When Captain Whitman entered the lounge and immediately questioned his presence, Elijah's heart sank. Her stern tone and abrupt dismissal of his explanation left him feeling both confused and vulnerable. He tried to remain polite, presenting the badge and repeating that he was part of the program, but each attempt to clarify was met with increasing doubt. The more he tried to defend himself, the more the captain's words became cutting and her attitude hostile. She did not ask questions to gather more information or verify his claims. Instead, she seemed intent on making him feel small and out of place. Elijah's sense of belonging was further shaken when Whitman accused him of using a fake ID. It was a sharp blow to his confidence, coming from someone in a position of authority whom he had looked up to. The captain's immediate jump to conclusions without giving him the benefit of the doubt left Elijah feeling more isolated than ever. The steady stream of harsh words and accusations pushed him further into a corner, figuratively and literally, as he struggled to maintain his composure in the face of such unexpected hostility. Throughout the ordeal, Elijah held on to the faint hope that someone would step in to validate his claims. He scanned the room, searching for Tanya Reynolds, or anyone who could confirm the truth of his story, but no one came forward. It was as if the walls of the lounge closed in around him, with each judgmental glance from those nearby tightening the knot of anxiety and frustration in his chest. He had always dreamed of becoming a pilot, and this lounge, this space meant for aviators, should have been a place of inspiration and affirmation. Instead, it became a stage for prejudice to play out in real time. Despite the fear, Elijah managed to stand his ground. Though his voice wavered, he continued to state the facts, hoping against hope that the truth would eventually surface. Inside, however, the joy and pride he felt earlier had been replaced by a heavy sense of disbelief and disappointment. For the first time, he understood the harsh reality of how bias and prejudice could instantly overshadow years of hard work and dedication. And as he stood there trying to defend his rightful place in that lounge, he realized that he would have to work even harder to overcome the barriers placed in his path, barriers he never expected to face on a day that should have been one of triumph. As tensions rose, Elijah remained frozen in place, his mind racing as he tried to make sense of what was happening. He'd followed every instruction given to him by the program organizers, wearing the official badge, patiently waiting where he was told. But Captain Whitman's accusations came swiftly and without evidence. Her voice was sharp, her demeanor cold, as if she had already judged and convicted him in her mind. Elijah felt the weight of her authority bearing down on him, rendering his words, his truth, seemingly meaningless. Her distrust was not subtle. Each time Elijah attempted to explain that Tanya Reynolds had given him the badge and authorized him to wait in the lounge, Whitman cut him off, her tone growing more dismissive. "This area is for real pilots," she said, glaring at him as though his very presence was an affront. Elijah, once filled with the pride of being part of the prestigious Horizon Airlines program, now felt reduced to a target of baseless suspicion. He couldn't help but notice that the harder he tried to defend himself, the more Whitman seemed to double down on her assumptions. What made the situation even more heartbreaking was the reaction of those around them. Staff members and pilots passing by glanced in, their expressions a mix of curiosity and wariness. No one stepped forward to question Captain Whitman's accusations or to vouch for Elijah. He felt the isolation keenly, the silence from others reinforcing the unfairness of it all. Elijah had worked so hard to reach this point, pouring his passion and energy into aviation. Yet here he was, facing the kind of hostility and doubt that made him question if all his effort would ever be enough. Elijah was well aware of the stakes. Any hint of a security breach in the aviation world carried serious consequences. A single accusation could lead to suspensions, inquiries, even permanent damage to his burgeoning career. He knew that if Whitman's claims weren't quickly refuted, the opportunity he had worked so tirelessly for might vanish. In his heart, he also knew that these accusations had less to do with his actions and more to do with how Whitman perceived him. Her tone, her demeanor, the way she grabbed his badge without hesitation, everything pointed to a deeper bias. As he stood there searching for a way to navigate the hostility, Elijah realized he was at a crossroads. The pride and hope that had once filled him felt distant now, overshadowed by the immediate need to prove he belonged. His dream of becoming a pilot, once so clear and bright, now felt precarious. He was no longer just fighting for recognition as a student in a training program. He was fighting against a judgment that had been made before he ever spoke a word. At the height of his anxiety, Elijah reached for his phone, his trembling fingers fumbling as he dialed the one person he knew could help his father, David Jackson. Elijah had always admired his dad, not only as a supportive parent, but also as a highly respected figure in the aviation world. David was the current administrator of the Federal Aviation Administration, a man deeply committed to ensuring the safety and integrity of the industry. Though Elijah had never imagined he'd need to rely on his father's influence, he now hoped it might be the lifeline he needed. When David answered, Elijah's voice cracked with emotion. "Dad, I need you," he began, his words tumbling out in a mix of fear and desperation. He explained the situation as best he could, how he was part of Horizon Airlines' career exploration program, how he'd been authorized to be in the lounge, and how his badge had been issued by HR. He described Captain Whitman's accusations, her refusal to believe him, and the looming threat of being removed by security. "I swear I didn't do anything wrong," Elijah pleaded, his voice rising. "She won't listen to me, Dad. She thinks I'm lying." On the other end of the line, David's calm but authoritative voice came through, cutting through Elijah's panic. "Elijah, listen to me," he said firmly. "Stay where you are. I'm on my way." In that moment, Elijah felt a small but vital sense of relief. Knowing that his father, someone who understood the stakes of aviation security better than almost anyone, was stepping in, gave him a sliver of hope. Yet, the minutes ticked by slowly as he waited, and the tension in the room grew heavier with each passing second. Elijah tried to keep his composure, but his mind raced with fears about what might happen if his father didn't arrive in time. As the door to the lounge opened once more, the sound of footsteps drew everyone's attention. Elijah turned, and his heart leapt at the sight of David Jackson striding into the room, flanked by several high-ranking FAA officials. The atmosphere shifted instantly. The confident, commanding presence of his father immediately challenged the dynamic. Captain Whitman, who had seemed so sure of her authority, suddenly faltered, her expression shifting from stern to uncertain. David approached his son, placing a steadying hand on Elijah's shoulder. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly, his voice both caring and firm. Elijah nodded. Feeling a rush of emotion he struggled to hold back. For the first time that day, he felt truly safe. His father turned to face Captain Whitman, his sharp gaze locking onto hers. "I am David Jackson," he said, his voice measured but unyielding. "Administrator of the Federal Aviation Administration. I understand there has been a grave misunderstanding here." In that moment, the power dynamic in the room shifted completely. David's presence brought a sense of authority and justice, making it clear that this was no ordinary parent come to defend their child. This was someone with the knowledge, experience, and position to ensure that fairness would prevail. Elijah felt a wave of relief, knowing that his father's arrival marked the beginning of a turning point in what had been the most challenging and unjust day of his life. David Jackson's arrival instantly altered the atmosphere in the lounge. The commanding presence of the FAA administrator and his team made it clear that this was not a situation that would be swept under the rug. As David stepped forward, his steady yet powerful demeanor caught everyone's attention. The employees and pilots who'd stood by silently began to exchange uneasy glances. Captain Whitman, who just moments earlier had been so confident in her accusations, now appeared visibly shaken. David first addressed his son, speaking softly but with unmistakable authority. "Elijah, you've done nothing wrong," he said firmly. "I'm here to make sure the truth comes to light." Those words alone seemed to bolster Elijah, who straightened his posture and nodded. The trembling in his hands began to subside as he felt the strength of his father's resolve. For the first time since the ordeal began, Elijah felt supported and protected. Turning to Captain Whitman, David's expression shifted. His gaze hardened, his tone grew sharper, and his words cut straight to the heart of the matter. "Captain Whitman," he began, "I've been briefed on your accusations against my son. I must ask, on what grounds did you determine that he was an intruder? What evidence led you to believe his ID was fake?" Whitman struggled to respond. Her earlier confidence drained away as she stumbled over her words. I thought he didn't belong here. His badge didn't seem legitimate, she stammered, but her explanation fell flat. David pressed further. Did you verify the badge? Did you consult anyone before making such a serious accusation? Or did you rely solely on your own assumptions? Her silence spoke volumes. The room remained hushed, every eye fixed on the unfolding confrontation. David Jackson's voice grew steadier, each word deliberate and unyielding. My son is a participant in the Horizon Airlines Career Exploration Program, chosen because of his hard work and dedication. He had every right to be in that lounge. The badge he wore was issued by the airline's HR department. Yet you not only doubted him, but you also called security without a shred of credible evidence. You accused him of trespassing, of carrying a fake ID, and of being a threat to airport security, all without verifying a single fact. David paused, letting his words hang in the air. The room felt heavy with the weight of truth and accountability. Employees and pilots who had once stood silent began to shift uncomfortably. Captain Whitman's gaze dropped to the floor as she realized the gravity of her actions. Her authority, once used to intimidate, now offered her no shield against the truth. David's calm but unwavering stance not only restored Elijah's dignity, but also sent a clear message to everyone present. It was a moment of reckoning, a powerful reminder that no one is above accountability. For Elijah, it marked the beginning of a path toward justice and a reaffirmation of the values his father had instilled in him. Elijah's father, David Jackson, stood firmly in the lounge, his words cutting through the tension like a sharp blade. He had made it clear that his son's presence was not just authorized but earned through hard work and dedication. Captain Whitman, once so certain in her accusations, now stood silent, unable to provide any concrete justification for her actions. The shift in power was palpable as the truth emerged and the baselessness of Whitman's claims came to light. As the FIA's top administrator, David knew that justice was not only about clearing his son's name, but also about setting a precedent. He spoke with authority, directing his team to conduct a thorough investigation into the incident to ensure that such a situation would never happen again. His focus wasn't on personal revenge, but on creating an environment where talent and dedication could thrive, regardless of one's background. Elijah, standing beside his father, felt a wave of relief mixed with determination. This ordeal, as painful and unjust as it had been, taught him something invaluable. It showed him that prejudice and bias could appear in the most unexpected places, but it also reinforced the importance of standing up for what's right. Elijah realized that his journey wasn't just about becoming a pilot. It was about proving that skill, passion, and hard work were what truly mattered, not the color of his skin or the assumptions of others. In the days and weeks that followed, the incident sparked meaningful conversations within Horizon Airlines and the broader aviation community. David Jackson used the moment as a teaching opportunity, advocating for more inclusive policies, better training on unconscious bias, and a culture where every individual could feel valued and respected. The events at the Pilot's Lounge became a rallying point for progress, illustrating how quickly injustice could surface and how crucial it was to confront it head-on. For Elijah, this experience would remain a defining chapter in his life. It taught him the power of resilience and the importance of standing firm in the face of unfair treatment. He knew that his dream of becoming a pilot wasn't just about personal ambition, it was also about paving the way for others who might face similar challenges. He wanted to prove that passion and dedication could overcome even the deepest prejudices. In reflecting on the story, one important lesson stands out. The strength to challenge bias and the courage to seek justice can lead to meaningful change. Elijah's experience, though painful, underscores the power of truth, perseverance, and the unwavering support of those who believe in equality and fairness. It's a reminder that every person deserves the opportunity to rise above prejudice and achieve their dreams, and that by confronting injustice, we can all contribute to a more inclusive and equitable society.